Hello, good morning once again. You're welcome. You're watching GHToday here on GHOne TV, the station that gives you your best experience. And my, oh my, what a beautiful Thursday morning it is. God has been so good to us, has gifted us with another day. Let us rejoice and be glad in the day, like the Bible says. Let us enter this day with a lot of enthusiasm, with a lot of positivity, and with an outlook of positive things to happen throughout the entire day. If we have that positive attitude, it makes the day a little better. Don't be gloomy. Don't be too sad. You may be going through some things. Everybody has things that they are going through that they have to deal with and that they have to grapple with. But what I always say is that the underlying factor through whatever problem it is that you're going through is that there is life. And once you are alive, there is always a way to surmount whatever problem it is that you have. Once you've not lost your life, there's always a way to surmount whatever problem it is that you have. There are many people who don't have the life that you have right now. Many people probably went to bed yesterday and have not been able to wake up this morning. Many people told their wives, their husbands, their dads, their moms, their cousins, their friends that, hey, I'll see you tomorrow. Only not to wake up again, only for some tragedy to happen. And they don't live to see that tomorrow that they had hoped they would see their friend or their loved one. But you are here. You have seen that tomorrow. So you should be grateful. Once your life is there, you have an opportunity to do a whole lot of things. To start over, to make a positive impact, to find a solution to your problem. You don't have to lose hope. You always have to be positive. To have a positive outlook towards life. You know, usually we focus so much on the problems that we have in our lives that we begin to forget about all the good things that are happening around us. You know, it reminds me of something I read somewhere some time back. I was quite young when I read that. I was a child. And it changed the way I look at certain situations. Because if you have a plain sheet of paper, right? And then there is a dot, or there are 2 dots, or 3 dots on that paper. And that paper was held up to you to look at the paper. Usually your focus is immediately going to go to the dots because it's a plain sheet of white paper with absolutely nothing on it. And then you see 1 dot, or 2 dots, or 3 dots. And then all your focus goes on the dots. Now, the dots represent the problems. But the entirety of the sheet of the paper represents all the good things and all the possibilities and all the great things that are happening around that we are ignoring. And then our focus is just on the dots that are in the paper, forgetting all the other good things, which is the rest of the paper, which is plain. That's how sometimes we view life. We focus on the problems. We focus on all the problems that we have and all the problems that we have to deal with and all the problems that we have to forget. And we allow the problems to take all our attention and all our focus, and it shifts our focus away from all the positive things that are happening around us. And that is more often than not good for our mental health and for our general well-being. Yes, the problems are there, and it is acknowledged that the problems are there. But don't lose sight of the other things around you that are good, the other things around you that are positive, the other things around you that you can actually be grateful for and smile about. That is why the Bible says that count your blessings and name them one by one, and it will surprise you what the Lord has done. When you listen to that hymn, it talks about going through the storms of life and going through the problems and thinking that all is lost. When you get to that point in your life, just start counting your blessings and name those blessings one by one. At the end of the day, it's going to surprise you what the Lord has actually done for you. And you will know that life is not so bad. The problems are there, but it's not the end of life. There are also positive things happening around you. Today, as I wake up this morning, the first blessing I count is the gift of life. Yes, I have problems, but the first blessing I count is the gift of life. I'm here, serving you breakfast on GHOne TV. It's another blessing that I can look at in a positive light. I've got friends and family and loved ones around. who love me and will check up on me from time to time. That is a blessing. I may be able to find a meal to eat during the day. That is a blessing. I'm not very sick. That is a blessing. My blessings may be different from yours. There are other things that you can look at and count all of those blessings. Look back at what the Lord has done for you, and it will really surprise you. So have a positive outlook towards life. And the more you have a positive outlook towards life, it gives you even the wisdom to be able to surmount the other problems that you are faced with and that you need to deal with. But if it's all negative, usually the focus becomes on all the negatives, and then you even lose sight of how to even deal with the negatives that you're looking at. So have a positive outlook. That's a message I have for you this morning as we're getting into GH Today here on GH1 Television. My name is Lantam Papanko, by the way, and it's an honor and a blessing for me to have this opportunity to serve you breakfast on the station that gives you your best experience, GH1 TV. We're on till it's 9 a.m. like we always do it on this nice Thursday morning. My oh my, what a show we've got lined up for you. Of course, when it's 7 o'clock like we always do, we've got a breakfast review coming up. And that will be right after I've taken you through the newspaper headlines. So I've got the newspapers here, and I'll run you through the headlines on the newspapers this morning. There are some very interesting ones today, especially with regard to, what happened in Parliament yesterday, among other things. And we'll get into the breakfast review right after that. And on the breakfast review today, my guests will be discussing a wide range of issues, including what happened in Parliament yesterday as regards the LGBTQI bill, or the bill on proper human sexual rights and Ghanaian family values bill. Yeah. So the committee that looked at the bill has recommended that the House passes the bill. And so it was debated on the floor of the House yesterday. And unanimously, the entire House, both minority and majority and independent side, all of them agreed that that bill should be passed. So as it stands now, like the MP and the Apiakubi said to one of our reporters, the president will have no option than to assent to the bill, because this reflects the will of the people. This reflects the mood of the country. And the people's representatives have done what the people have told them to do. That is to pass the bill. But it wasn't without, its own issues. When the debate was going on the floor of the House, there was a very, very interesting point where it would seem as though the Member of Parliament for the Tamale Central constituency, Ibrahim Murtala Mohammed, whispered something. I think his mic was on, but quite a lot of people could hear what he said. And that got the Minister for Communications, and MP for Ablekuma, very upset, because she says that the MP for Tamale Central was accusing her of being a practitioner of LGBT. And my oh my, what a heated exchange that was in Parliament. By the end of the day, cooler heads prevailed, and we moved on. It's interesting. The MP for Tamale Central will be joining us in the studio as part of the panel later on today. So perhaps it's one of the things that we'll seek some clarity on from him. So stay tuned in for that conversation. But getting into the issues that we'll be discussing today, that is one of them. Also, the buffer stock company has not paid food suppliers, and food suppliers have been picketing. In fact, they've been sleeping over at the premises of the buffer stock company for the past 2 days, because they want the monies that are owed them to be paid. And the monies have not been paid. So they say until the buffer stock company pays them, they are not going to stop picketing at the premises of the buffer stock company. And there is over 270 million Ghana cedis worth of debts that is owed the food suppliers. And it's over 2 years. So why hasn't the buffer stock company paid these food suppliers for over 2 years? That is why we are facing the problems that we have with regard to food supply in our various second cycle institutions, our various secondary schools or senior high schools. Because we've been hearing the stories, we've been reporting on the stories about how difficult it is for these schools to give the children or the students proper meals, because suppliers have just refused to supply in the quantities that they usually would to these schools. And the reason is that the buffer stock company owes them. And once they've not been paid, they cannot continue to, supply the food. So it's a big problem. I have heard people on the education committee in Parliament, for example, say that they will invite the management of the buffer stock company and the Ministry of Education as well, and perhaps the Ministry of Food and Agriculture to come and answer some questions as regards why the buffer stock company have not been able to pay these supplies. So that's one of the things that I will talk about on the show again today. And yes, we know that the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park has been renovated as well. We'll talk about that. And if we have time, we might also touch on, we might also touch on what is happening with regard to the Honourable Member of Parliament for the Asin North constituency. He's been a very talked about individual in this country. And with regard to his court case, there is an appeal that has been filed at the Supreme Court with regard to the court's ruling about his ineligibility to be MP for the people of Asin North in the aftermath of the election in the year 2020. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Also, aside the picketing of the buffer stock at the buffer stock company premises by the Food Suppliers Association, another picketing is expected to happen. Another picketing is expected to happen on the 11th of July, we are told, at the Ministry of Finance, and this time around it's by the Individual Bondholders Association of Ghana. So we have the Individual Bondholders Association of Ghana and the Individual Bondholders Forum. So all of them issued a statement combined indicating that they are going to picket. They've already notified the police because they say that a certain MOU that was signed between the Ministry of Finance and them, that MOU has not been honored, not been fulfilled. And certain promises that were made have also not been fulfilled. And so they are going to picket until the Finance Ministry gives them their money. You remember that the pensioner bondholders have been picketing at the Finance Ministry for a long time. They picket, the Finance Ministry talks to them, some sort of arrangement is agreed, and then they stop picketing, and then the arrangement that they have, or the agreement that they had is broken, and then they go back to picketing, and then the same thing happens, another arrangement, and then they go back, and then the arrangement is broken, and then they come back to picket. Old men and old women picketing at the Finance Ministry until the Finance Ministry finally started paying them some of their monies and their dividends, and they stopped the picketing. Now, we are seeing something similar with the individual bondholders. Very interesting stuff. What is the problem? Why is government refusing to pay? Is it that we don't have money? Perhaps that is the case. We've been told that we don't have money, right? But some of these individuals see that the government has money to do other things. So if you have money to do other things, why don't you have money to pay us? Even though we are going through a domestic debt exchange program, which has resulted in all of this. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that here on the show this morning. These are the issues that you can expect us to get into this morning here on GH Today. But yeah, yesterday, Parliament unanimously adopted the report on the Committee on Constitutional and Legal Affairs to recommend the passage of the Promotion of Proper Human Sexual Rights and Ghanaian Family Values Bill 2021. And we know that it's a private member's bill. So the House in a bipartisan manner called the bluff of Western countries who have often threatened sanctions over the enactment of such legislations, right? We know that there is a very strong advocacy for the bill not to be passed into law by a lot of people from the West, because you know that their values encourage the promotion of the activities of the LGBTQI community. If you go to the United States of America today, it's one of the things that is being promoted. You go to the USA today, there are corporate entities and corporate bodies that are promoting the activities of the LGBTQI activity in the name of equality. That is their culture. That is their norm. Those are their values, right? But those values certainly are not African values or Ghanaian values, and that is why this bill is there. You go to America today, you know, you've got companies in the month of June, for example, I think they call it Pride Month. So you see all companies, and if you are on social media, you see them. A lot of corporate bodies, making a political statement on the left, saying that they stand with LGBTQI community, and then they mount what they call the pride flag and the queer flag and the transgender flag and all of that. And when you go there, sometimes certain things that you'd be able to say here, if you go and say that, they will call you a bigot, they will call you a homophobe, they will call you a transphobe. That's what they say, homophobic, transphobic, and what have you. So when you go to those jurisdictions, you go to the UK, you go to France, you go to the United States, that is their culture. That is what they do there. That is what they promote. They are promoting transgenderism. Transgenderism is, I'm a man right now, so as I'm sitting here, I can get up today and say that I don't feel like I'm a man anymore. I think I'm in a wrong body. I'm a woman. I can get up and decide to say that. And then once I get up and I decide to say that, they have something that they call gender affirming care or gender affirming therapy that they will take you through. What that essentially means is that when you go through that therapy, they will just affirm whatever I say. So if I sit in front of whoever is giving me the gender affirming care and then say that, oh, I feel like I'm a woman, I want to have breasts, I want to go through a procedure to take off my manhood and reconstruct it to look like a woman's own and all of that. They'll just say, okay. And then they'll start giving me hormonal treatment. They'll start giving me a lot of, I don't know whether it's estrogen that they give to them. I'm not really sure, but they give them some sort of hormonal treatment to gradually change their bodily features. And then they start wearing wigs and all of that, and they start calling themselves women. So I could do that. I could get up and, decide. Sometimes it only takes me just getting up and saying that I'm a woman. I may not even have to undergo any hormonal treatment. I can just get up and say I'm a woman. So call me a woman. I am not he. I'm not he or him. I am she and her. And that is enough. I can wear a wig and start dressing like that. And that is accepted. And if anybody there sees me and calls me him or calls me a man, the person will be called a transphobe or a bigot or whatever. That is what is happening in those Western societies. And that is what we say we don't want here in Ghana. Today, when you go to the United States of America, there are men, okay, who have been men for most parts of their lives, who are athletes and have gotten up and decided that they don't want to be men again. They want to be women because that is how they were born. That is how they feel. So they transition to become women. And they go and compete in women's sports. And they start taking all the medals, in women's sports. And that's actually one of the hottest debated issues in some of these countries. Typical example is a certain swimmer called Leah Thomas, right? Who was a man, grew up as a man. He's about 6 foot, tall human being. He's about 6 foot. If you see him, very tall, right? She's called Leah Thomas, right? And he used to be a swimmer with, the men's swimming. He used to compete with men and all of that. And then he got up one day and says that he's not a man anymore. He's a woman. So Leah Thomas changed the name to Leah Thomas and all of that. And then went in and started competing with women in swimming. And has now started winning all the medals, competing with the people, with the women, and winning all the medals. Yeah. So is it fair for somebody who grew as a man and has all the muscles and all of that to now decide that he's a woman and then start competing with women in sports? What do you think is going to happen? Men are physically stronger and biologically stronger than women. But no, they'll tell you that, and they have to go through hormonal treatment and equality and, it's not necessarily that and all of that. If you dare say anything negative about the Leah Thomas, they'll call you a bigot or they'll call you a transphobic person. It has even gotten to a case where they are saying children who are born, can decide that they are men or decide that they are boys or decide that they are girls. And if your child who is 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, 9 years, 10 years is born a boy, imagine your son who is about 9 years old gets up and comes to you and say that, I'm not a boy, I'm a girl. You have to affirm that boy You have to affirm that boy and say that, yes, you are a girl. And let the boy can decide, I want to undergo whatever, hormonal treatment, gender reassignment surgery. And they will let that child undergo and go through all of those things. And then change the sex to become a girl. And they will reconstruct, they will cut off the manhood and reconstruct something there. And even that one comes with its own complications and problems and infections and all of that. But they allow children to decide. They call something they, them pronouns. Those are the non-binary people. They say, don't call me he or she or him or her. Call me they or them. So if I say I go by they, them, and you are talking about me, you don't say he, Lantam. He is going to the market. You say they is, I don't know, is it they is or they? This is very confusing. But you see, sometimes it gets into the realms of absurdity. And that is what we say we don't want here in Ghana. Right? And that is what we say, that this is not our culture. I mean, it's too much for us. Imagine a child, though, who is like 10 years old. The child gets up and the boy says that, oh, no, I'm not a boy again, I'm a girl. And they allow that child to undergo whatever surgery and then become a girl. And if you go and speak about it, they'll say that you are transphobic. And then there will be all kinds of signs. You could even lose your job for saying that. That is what is happening. Even children. You understand? They don't even, because I wonder what would have happened to somebody like me at a particular point in time when I was growing up. When I knew very well that I was a boy, I'll go and play football with my friends and do all the things that little boys do. But sometimes, for the fun of it, I'll go and take my mother's wig and put my mother's wig on and go and wear my mother's what's it called, slippers or moke, and be walking around in the house and be fooling around. Perhaps if I were in one of those society, somebody would say that, no, you are not a boy, you are a girl. And then they will go and do gender reassignment, say, and I'll grow up to become a man like this and I'll regret it. So these are the things that we say we don't want in our society, right? And yesterday, unanimously, all the members of parliament agree that the bill should be passed, because we cannot enter those realms of absurdity that those in the West have entered with regard to this gender ideology and gender politics and activities of LGBTQI and whatever. That is what we say we do not want. So I don't know what your thoughts are on these things, but you can let us know on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Let us know what your thoughts are on this. Andy Apiakubi said yesterday that the president will have no option than to assent or put his signature on this, because this reflects the will of the people. Once all of the people's representatives have unanimously said that this bill should be passed, once it is passed, the president would have to do what the people say that he should do. So yeah, that is it. Let me quickly run you through the newspapers, about 3 of them. Daily Graphic newspaper this morning says, NHIA pays 376 million to 4,500 facilities. 2 women jailed 24 years for killing a 90-year-old woman. Aflao Hospital, 2 nurses hot. Cash and carry kills patients. Ministry approves Pecan Energy's oil field development plan. So that's what you'll find on the front page of the Daily Graphic newspaper. Ghanaian Times, MPs unanimously back LGBTQ plus bill, recommend passage of 25 clause bill to proscribe same-sex relationships, among others. Ghana to build 1,000 electric vehicle charging stations in every 5 years. Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam has been saying that. So that's there on the Ghanaian Times newspaper. And then I'll finally take a look at the Chronicle newspaper, which says that Speaker Bagbin orders all against anti-gay bill rise, but 275 MPs stay glued to their seats. Lepers grateful to Baumia for giving them Ghana cards. Fire officer jailed for beating bailiff. Please vote for me. I'll win 2024 for NPP. Alan Tremanting speaks. So that is the Chronicle newspaper. Let's look at the Daily Guide. Okay, Daily Guide is here. I'll do the Daily Guide and then I'll do the Dispatch. David Ajay bows out after sexual allegations. Drama over anti-LGBTQ as MPs debate bail. Evangelist and prophetess jailed 12 years for stealing 265,000 Ghana cedis. Bawumia starts Ashanti tour, and MPP opens parliamentary nominations for orphan constituencies. So that's the Daily Guide newspaper's reports this morning. And finally, the Daily Dispatch. My ideas could have saved Ghana from the 17th IMF program. Alan takes on NPP and NDC government. Alan says he wasn't listened to. If he was listened to, perhaps he would not be in this situation. But he was a cabinet minister, so is it that when he talks, nobody listened? Anyway, Elmina celebrates Bakatue Festival. Obu honored at Gambia Law School. The famous of Opoku Prempeh apologized over busy internet contract award lies, and 540,000 men had sex with other men in Ghana. That's according to a report in 2017. So that's the Daily Dispatch newspaper, and that should do it for the newspaper headlines this morning. Stay tuned. When we return, we've got the breakfast review coming up. Don't go anywhere.